Barakallahu fik, Ismahan. And they're very poignant. And I think you've put your finger on the jurh, on the wound, and on the heart of the issue itself. And I've always pondered, what's the best way to answer a question like this? How do you make an ummah patient with the struggle? How do you make an ummah persevere in the struggle and the like? And one day, you sit down sometimes, and I don't want to give the impression that I just sit down in my room and I just ponder things. It's not that. It's just one thing leads to another, So one day I was watching, as I was growing up, I believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I would pray not because I wanted Jannah, because I was too scared of hellfire. I always felt like I wasn't deserving of Jannah, like Jannah is for, good people. Like it's not for people who maybe, rush dhuhr because, they've got a PlayStation FIFA match later on with their friends and they want to get there first. Because if you're last to the house, you won't play for another hour while everybody's going through the matches. That's in my teenage years, not now. Don't worry, guys. So Shaykh Umar Sulaiman did this Jenna Series, where he goes through and he describes Jannah based on the hadith and that kind of. And I watched it with my family, and it was the first time, that you sit there and you think, wait a minute, like, Jannah sounds nice. I'd like to be, that'd be so cool, like just to go through Jannah and see all these things that eyes have never seen and just be in comfort. And then you start thinking to yourself, what would I want in Jannah? I remember when the Sheikh used to ask us when we were kids, I was about 9 or 10, he said, in Jannah you can have anything you want. Yalla, what do you want? And I put my hand up, I said, I want a river of Rubicon mango juice. And he said, look at this narrow mind, think bigger. I told him mango juice and guava juice on the other side. He told me, you only think about your stomach, yakhi. I told him, I don't know, like, no one to tell me I can't play PlayStation, and a never-ending football match where I can just have people, I just call on them, they come and play soccer. You guys, I know American branding is really good. You branded handball as football. So I watched the football match. That ain't football. Like, it's grab the ball, hut, hand, hut, throw, hut, catch, hut, touchdown, hut, all with the hand, and you called it the foot. American branding. In any case, when I refer to football, I refer it as football. And then, of course, you start thinking at night later on, after that Jenna series, I thought, what would I want Jannah to be like? And I thought, first, I want my family near me. Then you think, second, I want a football pitch. Then you think, thirdly, I just want, whatever. And then you think, okay, let me go beyond. As the series went on, you start to go beyond, when you watch Shaykh Umar Sulaiman talk about it. And then I thought, what would it be like to meet the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? What would it be like, And then eventually I came up with the scenario, about walking in on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You walk in, you look around and you think to yourself, where am I? What's this? It looks so beautiful, amazing. Am I in the right place? Is this first Jannah or top Jannah? Because this looks wow. And then you go in and you see Prophet ﷺ flanked by 2 men. One is talking passionately, and your imagination runs away with you. You imagine you walk in and they're mid-conversation, and one is saying, so Ya Rasulullah, when I entered Al-Quds, we finally entered, and we entered, and then the other person will say, when you entered, did you give the rights to the Jews? And the other person will say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Umar al-Khattab, I did, I upheld. Says, well done, very good, well done Salahuddin. You're like, whoa, where am I? SubhanAllah. And then the one in the middle is a wonderful, handsome man, the likes of which you've never seen before. Tells you, Salamu alaikum, you tell him, wa alaikum as-salam. And he will tell you, sit down. You'll be like, where am I? Or, SubhanAllah. And he will say, which generation are you from? And I'm like, which generation are you from? And he says, and then Umar Khattab be like, that's Rasulullah. And I'm like, SubhanAllah, Allah, like, where am I? Like kind of thing. And Naseem and Amr are next to me, for example. They're just as confused as I am. That we're all there, SubhanAllah. And then, we were talking, the Rasul said, which generation are you from? And then I think to myself, what could I claim? I went back to the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and I asked myself, Sami, if you were part of this story, which part would you want to be? And you realize later why that's the wrong question. So I read the seerah and I got to Sumayya radiallahu anha. She becomes Muslim, but she's killed before the Prophet ﷺ can even give da'wah in public. She goes to Firdaus, but I find myself asking Ismahan, would I really accept to be Sumayya? Side character, astaghfirullah. I realize, as you're going through, then you think, okay, Sumayya, mashallah, Firdaus, but that's not the way I want Firdaus. Musa bin Umayr radiallahu anhu goes and converts Yathrib to Medina, but he dies before Fath Makkah. And I read it and I was like, mashallah, Musa bin Umayr, but I know he's in Firdaus, but I don't want it that way. Hamza radiallahu anhu dies in Uhud. Dies in the battle, the Muslims are defeated. Asadullah. He dies, and I would read the seerah and I would say, okay, Sami, would you accept to be this role? And I was like, I know Hamza Asadullah is in Jannah, but I don't want it this way. And you go through the seerah, and what becomes apparent, and I'm telling you only my own reflection, maybe it might reflect you, maybe you're better than me. I realize that the way I envisage struggle is, I have to be the main character. I have to be a protagonist. It was almost as if I would rather be the Quraysh who became Muslim at Fatah Makkah than be somebody who left during the journey and didn't get the applause at the end. And the more you look, the more you realize, La ilaha illallah, I'm a munafiq. Like, astaghfirullah al-azim. Sumayya is in Firdaus, and that should, you know, when I asked the question, where would I fit in the story? The reason I said it's the wrong question, because I realized that if you ask the question, where do I fit into the story, or where do I want to be in the story, you think of the dunya and the glory of the dunya. But if you ask yourself, how can I please Allah and go to Firdaus, every single aspect of that seerah, you think, I'd accept being that. I'd accept being that. I would accept this, and I would accept this, and I would accept this, and I would accept. And I realized that in my heart of hearts, and the person who really exemplified it for me was Muhammad Jalal in the Thinking Muslim podcast. Because he asked me a question at the end, and he said, you know, we talk about Salah ad-Din and these people on the podiums, how can we be like those people of Jannah? And it hit me. Why do you consider those people as the people of Jannah exclusively? Why is it that the cherry on top of the cake is what you look at? Not the teachers who upheld the Quran and taught the generation. Not those who when Quran was banned they kept teaching. Not the mothers who instilled that love the way Zubaydah bint Ammar instilled it in me. Not, for example, those who when the hijabis couldn't go to school in Turkey, the Muslimat would set up exclusive schools in order to be able to educate them and go. Why are these not the people that you consider the ones in Firdaus? Why does it have to be the ones on the podium? Why is it that when you look at Bosnia, you look at all the students of these Muslim associations who are under pressure on the campuses? And I might recognize the face of one of them who's under heavy pressure at the moment online on Twitter, the girl called Fatima. But when you look at these students who suffer or the like, and in Bosnia they would be executed or the like, why, even though I don't know their names, why is it when I imagine Firdaus, I don't imagine these people, I only imagine those on the podium? And I realized that the reason why, it reflected the disease of my own heart. That in effect, what I was viewing Islam as, Islam is only worth struggling for if I get the applause in the dunya. Islam is only worth struggling for if I'm there at the end of the journey of the dunya. Islam is only worth it if I am the one who is celebrated for my role. Even though the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he was offered before he died, do you want to stay in the dunya and see the fruits of your effort, or do you want to go back to Allah? He chose to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every Prophet is asked before they die. Because for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he understood his role as not the one to bring about the outcome, as the one to live his life as a vehicle for Allah, waiting for that blessed moment when Allah would call him back, so he can go to Jannah. And it poses the question to you, what is the blessed moment for you? Is the blessed moment to go back to Allah in Jannah? Or is the blessed moment when you stand and everybody says, Sami, mashallah, you lifted the Ummah on your back? And that's when you suddenly, there's this terror that overcomes you, where you realize that you're trying to share in the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah has told you, Man kana yuridu al-izzata, فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا. And here is the fascinating thing about Islam, in that when you get to that conclusion, you start saying, okay, I need to program myself to accept being a Sumayya, accept to be somebody whose effort, I do the effort that I have, and although it doesn't bring the outcome that I want, ana radhi because Allah is radhi, I accept it because Allah loves it. And an interesting thing about it is, it leads you to a mentality where you value every action. And the irony is that you read this verse in the short surahs, every kid knows this verse, but you never truly appreciate it. Allah says, وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى. He who does even an, or he, she, because I know you have gender issues here in the US, or pronouns and stuff. Those who do good, an atom of good deed, Allah recognizes it, Allah sees it. And I realize that in my mentality, Allah might recognize it, but because the dunya doesn't, I'll leave it as an atom, I'll only think about the big actions. And the fascinating thing about Islam is, you have a story about what Allah does when you're ready to be the vehicle, however minor it might be. Allah tells you the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is about a man who sacrifices what is the dearest thing to him. Allah tells him, if you truly love me, sacrifice the dearest thing to you in this dunya. But look at Allah's mercy. When Ibrahim finally got to the point when he was ready to do so, Allah didn't even take the sacrifice from him. Allah said, all I needed was the proof you were willing to do so. You may keep your son and keep the blessing in this dunya, and I will elevate you and put you on that podium that you learnt and accepted was not the be-all and end-all. It's almost as if the secret of success in Islam is not to pursue the podium, but to pursue the willingness to be a vehicle in any shape or form. And the moment your heart is ready for that, the moment you say, Ya Allah, I'm ready to be Sumayya anha, I no longer look down on it. I now appreciate that she is just as important as those who entered Mecca. She is just as important as Hamza anhu. That those who never saw the Fatah Mecca, they are just as important as those who got the victory. But for their sacrifice, there would be no victory. But for their belief, there would be no victory. But for their supremacy of faith, that they were ready to give their all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet, despite knowing they wouldn't get anything in the dunya. When your heart is ready for that, the fascinating about Islam is, that's the moment you find Allah opens a door that sends you soaring to the very podium that you've just given up. So when you ask me about being hasty or the like, I think that hastiness comes from a subconscious desire to share glory, a subconscious desire to have people say, look at the plan and how they executed it. Because the ones who are not hasty, the ones who are at ease with the progress, are not necessarily, when I say at ease, I don't mean they're sitting at ease. I mean the ones who keep going, who keep mobilizing. We got it wrong today, we fix it tomorrow. We got it wrong 10 times, we go the 11th time. We got it wrong in Uhud and in Khandaq and whatever. We keep going again. Why? Because for them, they believe they've already attained the victory. Because for them, it wasn't about the outcome. For them is, Alhamdulillah, Allah has given me the strength to be a vehicle. Alhamdulillah, Allah has chosen me to be a vehicle. All I want is for Allah to accept the effort. I want Allah to accept what I'm doing. And the reason why I mentioned Surah Hud earlier is you talk about hastiness. Nuh gives da'wah for 900 years, yes man. And after 900 years, he doesn't say, oh Allah, where is the victory? He says, Rabbi inni da'awtu qawmi layla wa nahara wa lam yazidhum du'ai illa firara wa anni kullama da'awtum litaghfira lahum ja'alu asabi'ahum fi adhanihim wastaghshaw thiyabahum wa asarru wastakbaru istikbara. Nuh, after 900 years, he says, Ya Allah, I'm calling on these people day and night. And every time I call on them, they plug their ears. And when I call on them so you might forgive them, they put their fingers in their ears and they cover their faces. They run away from me and they treat me with arrogance. What I find fascinating about the verse is some people look at it and focus on the point that his people weren't listening. I focus on Rabbi inni da'awtu qawmi layla wa nahara. Allah, I called on my people day and night. Allah, I kept going. Allah, I kept moving. Allah, I kept mobilizing. And though I wasn't seeing the fruits that I wanted, Allah, I kept moving. Allah, I kept mobilizing. And Allah delivers him an outcome and a victory and elevates him to the heavens later on. And that's why I think that to answer the question, because I was whispered in my ear, please behave on the time. But the point being is this. I think that when we talk about hastiness, I think that hastiness disappears once you're ready to accept being a vehicle, and once you're ready to accept living a life where the greatest honor is not what they say about you in the dunya, but what the angels in the heavens will say about you. And for those interested in hearing what the angels in the heavens will say, let me tell you, because Allah SWT says it in the Quran. I believe that to get over hastiness, you have to create for yourself a scenario that is worth achieving. And you realize that whatever the scenarios of the dunya, no scenario in this dunya compares to this scenario. And I'd like to share it with you because this is what keeps me going. I believe that the Ummah is destined to struggle. Because the Prophet ﷺ, from the time he raised his da'wah at 40 years of age, he struggled until he died. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq began his reign with struggle. And Umar al-Khattab likewise. And the Ummah goes through the struggle. Why? Because the very path of justice is one of struggle. It's not one of comfort. The very path of justice is one in which those of injustice will resist you. And it becomes a struggle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ultimately decide the outcome. If I can reconcile this in my heart, and I'm not saying I have, maybe I haven't. The reason why I give you examples of Sumayya and Mus'ab and Hamza radiallahu anhum ajma'een, is to pose the questions to you that I pose to myself. Sami Hamdulillah, you're enjoying going around America and talking about Gaza and Palestine. Would you accept to be somebody on the ground canvassing on the doors? Would you accept to be somebody who's the one who goes and just, does the retweeting of the videos? Would you accept to be somebody who's not gifted in eloquence, but maybe is gifted in something small where nobody appreciates? Are you willing to accept it? I don't have an answer, and I would bet none of you have an answer for that either. The scenario that I imagine is this, that once you accept the outcome might not come in your lifetime, because let's be honest, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not see Quds liberated. The Prophet ﷺ did not see Islam being given, like the da'wah being given in English or in American, because they're separate languages. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not see Islam in Latin America, did not see those in Bangladesh who love the Prophet so much, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that they would come out in their hundreds of thousands defending his honor whenever Macron defends the cartoons. Prophet ﷺ never saw this. But did he need to? Because the magnificence of the Prophet ﷺ was not entirely in the material things he achieved, because by the time he died, he only ruled over the Arabian Peninsula that the Persians and the Romans didn't even believe was worth conquering. The magnificence of the Prophet ﷺ was a spirit that he left behind. A spirit in which the Ummah will never be an Ummah that sits down and does nothing. That the Ummah would keep going whatever the odds. That the Ummah would keep shouting for justice no matter what. That the Ummah would always be on the front lines. That the Ummah would rather throw everything for the cause of justice than to sit in its comfort. That the people of Bosnia would rather preserve La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and suffer a genocide and persecution than give it up and live a life of comfort in Yugoslavia. That the people of Turkey would rather struggle and be executed and be tortured and be slaughtered for La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah than accept Ataturk's secularism, in which he banned the printing of the Quran and tried to shut down the mosques and kicked out the scholars. They could have lived a life of comfort. All they had to do was say, I'm giving up La ilaha Muhammad. They refused to do so. The scenario I imagine is this, that after accepting that I might not achieve the outcome in my lifetime, because the Prophet ﷺ did not see Quds liberated, Nuh alayhi salam did not convince all his people, Hud alayhi salam did not convince all his people, Salih alayhi salam did not convince all his people, and they were far better people than Sami ibn al-Hashim. If I accept that, and I say to myself, Allah, I'm not a particularly talented individual. I don't have lots of money. I don't have an army. I tell people punish Biden, but I'm not sure what will happen next. I tell people focus on the local politics. You can punish Biden in the elections, and you can prevent Trump from getting the House. When they tell me how, I tell them get the data first so we can analyze it. They say how? I say Google it. Just do anything. Figure it out. Ya Allah, I don't have all the answers. Ya Allah, I don't know if I'm telling the Ummah to go into a difficult 4-year period where Trump might be worse. All I know is I want to punish Genocide Joe. I can't live a life being humiliated where someone commits a genocide of 20,000 Palestinians and still wins a second term. Wallahi, if I'm to suffer next 4 years, we suffer together, Genocide Joe. I'll bring you down and then let's suffer the 4 years together. But wallahi, I won't let you get a second term after committing a genocide of 20,000 people. I will not let the world say that you can do that and still survive in politics. Your career is finished, and I will do every power I can to make sure that it's finished. Allahu Akbar. Views expressed on the speaker zone. Views expressed on the speaker zone. Views expressed on the speaker zone. Ignore what these people just did. I imagine that after living a life in which I trip over, and I hope the Ummah lifts me up when I trip over. I believe that when I make a mistake, and I hope the Ummah says, Sami, you had good intentions, get up, try again. I hope the Ummah does that. I hope the Ummah doesn't do what they've done in the past to some mashayikh like Sheikh Umar Sulaiman and others, where they lambast him for every tiny little thing. I hope that we're an Ummah that the same way they made 1,000 excuses for red pill, maybe they'll make some excuses for me, subhanAllah. They found the rahmah for red pill, they couldn't find it for mashayikh. Ya ibadallah, show me at least what you showed the red pill guy, at least. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. I hope that after a lifetime of tripping up, being lifted up, lifetime tripping up, getting a WhatsApp from Sister Ismahan, Sami, keep going. I just sent this message to motivate you. From other brothers, keep going. I just sent a message to motivate you. When I feel down and I think, subhanAllah, I'm tired, and my wife tells me, go, 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 Allah bless you. Don't worry about London, I've got it sorted. You keep doing what you're doing. And I keep going, and I feel like they all had hope that I would do something. But Ya Rabb, I'm approaching the last breaths of my life, and Al-Quds is still chained, and Bin Salman is de-Islamizing Saudi, and the UAE have gone overboard, and the Ummah just looks like in a much more difficult struggle, and Imran Khan is sentenced to prison just because the establishment believe he'll win an election, and they are so horrified that Pakistanis actually want to be liberated. Ya Allah, I tried. Ya Allah, maybe I got it wrong. Ya Allah, I tried. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. Ya Allah, if only I had a few more years just to do this. Ya Allah, I tried. Ya Allah, I failed miserably. Ya Allah, I tried to use my powers. I don't know if I used it well. Ya Allah, wallah, I tried. And I feel my ruh, my soul's about to come out. And I say, Ya Allah, I'm sorry that I left the world this way. I'm sorry I couldn't use my powers to maximum effect. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And the soul leaves the body. And I feel like that I failed miserably because I kept trying, but I didn't see the outcome that I wanted. Here's the scenario I imagine. Instead of my soul going up and the angel saying, Ya ayyatuha nafsul khabitha, oh dirty, disgusting soul, soul that had power but did nothing, soul that saw others doing something and told them there's no point, soul that said this strategy is useless, don't bother, soul that said why are you moving anyway, the world is against us, soul that said Mahdi's coming, don't bother moving, soul that said keep going or whatever, soul that wanted to see the outcome in its dunya and wouldn't mobilize unless they knew they were going to see the outcome. That's not what you're going to hear. You won't hear, oh, this soul failed in this dunya because it failed to liberate Al-Aqsa, go to Jahannam wa bi'sal masir. You won't hear that. What you'll hear is, you will hear the angels, as you're in tears at not achieving the outcome that you wanted. You will hear the angels, they will say, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'innah, oh beautiful soul, soul that whose heart was broken but they kept going, soul that felt despair but they kept going, soul that felt the world was against them but kept going, soul that saw the odds were against them but kept going, soul that felt even the basic retweet made a difference, soul that believed وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ, soul that kept going and kept encouraging other people, mother, soul that kept making cupcakes to sell to neighbors so they could find an excuse to give da'wah, soul that whose mother kept telling him to take couscous to the neighbor and to give a Quran with it as well, soul that kept moving for the only reason that they believed that Allah had all the power and Allah would give it as He wills, and so they used the powers that they had. You will hear, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. You come back to your Lord, why are you crying? Allah is celebrating you. Allah radi alik. Allah is appreciating you. Allah is celebrating you. Allah loves you because you kept going. Allah loves you because you kept moving. Allah loves you because when your heart was broken, it never lost faith in Allah. You knew the victory was coming and you kept going. What perseverance, what striving. You didn't get the outcome in the dunya, but look at this beautiful outcome. فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. Come back to your Lord. And I imagine when you enter the Jannah, you won't be asking about this dunya. I won't ask why Arsenal didn't win in 2006 Champions League final. I won't ask what happened in this dunya. You'll go up. And I imagine that scenario I gave you, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, let's finish it. I imagine that as I approach, I'm envious of listening to Salah ad-Din Ayyub and Umar al-Khattab telling the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ how they liberated Al-Aqsa. And I imagine, I could be wrong, this is my imagination, let's run wild. I imagine that I'll be terrified that the Prophet ﷺ will ask me, what generation are you? Because I have nothing to say. And the Prophet ﷺ will look at me, smiling, mashallah, with his beautiful face, and say, what generation are you? And I imagine myself pouring my heart out, Ya Rasulullah, I'm from a pathetic generation. Ya Rasulullah, we had social media, we broke Israel's monopoly over the narrative, and we tried and we mobilized, but we made mistakes. Some of the Ummah wouldn't believe they had power. I tried to shout on the microphone. I tried to come up with so many different examples and scenarios to try to encourage them. I tried to go this way and this way and this way, yeah. I tried to do all this, and Ya Rasulullah, all I had was a tongue. I tried to make money. I was rubbish at business. My brother was. Everything he touches turned to gold. Me, I touch anything, it just gets, I don't know how to make money. I have no idea how, even though I make good money, alhamdulillah. But in any case, Ya Rasulullah, I tried, I didn't know anything about this or this or this, Ya Rasul, and he would say, enough, you're now in Jannah, enough. And I will feel myself less. This is a scenario I imagine, and entertain me with this one. I imagine that one of the youngsters sitting here, inshallah, he will come after me while I'm sitting in this gathering. And the Prophet ﷺ will ask him, what generation are you from? Him and his sister. We're all at this point sitting with Sami in the, inshallah, all of us in Firdaus. Gulu Ameen. They will come and the Prophet ﷺ will say, what generation are you? And they'll say, Ya Rasulullah, we are the ones who liberated Al-Aqsa for the third time. And in my heart, I'll be like, oh, mashallah. Honored, let him sit down. But before they sit down, I imagine they do this. Entertain me just for a bit. Ya Rasulullah, it's an honor to see we liberated Al-Aqsa. Allah. Sami. Are you Sami? Ya Rasulullah. I used to watch his videos. Ya Rasulullah, he convinced me we were strong. Ya Rasulullah, he told us the Ummah was strong. All I had to do was go to Bosnia, Turkey, Uzbekistan and reconnect with the memories of my Ummah. He said we were like vessels and we just had to pour the memories in. And I realized my Ummah was strong. I realized they were powerful. His generation and those of California, they broke Israel's monopoly over the narrative. Everybody saw it as an apartheid regime. And then we pushed and lobbied. And then sanctions were imposed on the Israelis. And then we broke their apartheid regime. The Palestinians were finally liberated. They went for the right of return. Ya Rasulullah, these guys paved the way for us. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't liberate Al-Aqsa. And I'd be like, Allah. And the Prophet would say, you see, every soul has value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your generation's role was to lay the paveway, lay the foundations for the liberation of Al-Aqsa, as Imam Al-Ghazali and Nuruddin Zanki and those before Salah al-Ayyubi paved the way for Salah ad-Din to liberate Al-Aqsa. And I would say, Allah, now I understand why you made me go through the events I did. Now I understand the struggles that we went through. Now I understand the battles that we faced. Now I understand the values of the victories we had. Now I understand the gains that we made. Now I understand how it all connects together. You never truly abandoned this ummah. You were always with us. You always showed us the path. We took this path. We struggled on this path. And now we sit in Jannat al-Firdaus. Your justice was established on this earth. And it was established on the Jannah, inshallah. For those who are hasty, they are those who don't imagine Jannah. For those who are hasty, they don't imagine the struggle. For those who are hasty, they haven't yet met the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in their imagination. And they haven't prepared their argument for what they're going to say to Rasulullah. They haven't prepared the argument to say, Ya Rasulullah, even though it looked bleak, I kept moving. Even though it looked bleak, I kept mobilizing. Even though it looked bleak, I kept telling people to move. They haven't had that conversation yet. When you have that conversation, your imagination, Ya Ibadallah, every action of resistance has value. Every action of speaking out for justice has value. Every action that makes the Israelis unhappy, whether it's on social media or the like, Ibadallah, they're spending billions to silence us, billions to shut our accounts, billions to shadow ban #Palestine. To be honest, when I see them spending billions to shut an ummah that has broken their monopoly for free, I say, you know what, Bibi Netanyahu, retweet, there you go, repost, there you go, comment, there you go. I don't know how far it will go, but I know he's worried. I don't know how far it will go. I know they're panicking. I don't know how far it will go. I know they're concerned about it. So as the Algerians say, Zkarafi, I'll keep doing it, because somehow I believe it will lead to an opportunity where we can do something great. And I'll finish on this point. I promise I'll finish on this point. When public opinion shifted in Quraysh, when it shifted in Mecca, it created a series of events that led to Aus and Khazraj going to the Prophet ﷺ when he had no army and saying to him, Ya Rasulullah, we are ready to support you. This shift in public opinion in Arabia created the environment that unlocked the power that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ needed to take the da'wah to the next step. Ibadallah, if you're tired about the slow pace, accept yourselves in the role of the first 13 years of da'wah, where you are shifting the public opinion, and Aus and Khazraj are on the way, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Thank you very much. Allahu